Okay, a very good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another exciting career guidance webinar organized by the Career Guidance Unit of Faculty of Engineering, University of Rohana. Today, the resource person for this exciting webinar is from Gapstars, a Netherlands-based B2B service provider. We are really excited. I would like to invite Ms. Zahra Nadir, Community Manager of GapStars, to give us a brief introduction about the company. Over to you, Ms. Zahra Nadir.
Thanks, Mazhar. Thank you for the incredible introduction. So I think you've covered GapStars and what we do quite well already. So just to give you guys a bit of an introduction as well as to what we do, we are a B2B service provider based in Netherlands. And what we do is we partner up with Dutch tech scale-ups and startups, and we build remote teams for them right here in Sri Lanka with Sri Lankan talent. So what we actually want to do, a career guidance session and a bit of understanding on the topic of entrepreneurship versus business. So we have our very own Tiliana Fonseca, who will be covering that topic in detail for you guys. And thank you all so much for joining this evening. I will now pass it on to the moderators for them to take over and for them to give a bit of an introduction on Ms. Tiliana and to kickstart the session.
Thank you, Ms. Zahra Nadir, regarding the introduction. Okay, so today we are here for an exciting session. Entrepreneurship and business is a hot topic in today's modern world. People often confuse entrepreneurship with business. But actually, what is the difference is a big question among public as well as undergraduates like us. And that's why we are here today with structured interview with an expert in the field. Most of you may know him already, but I would like to introduce him as part of this session. He is currently the passbook delivery manager in Netherlands. Also, he was the former co-founder, head of product, process and technology of Simplex e-commerce solutions private. He was also a business analyst with almost nearly 3 years of experience. Former ISACA, Sri Lanka, VP Corporate Development and Non-Corporate Development Projects. Without further delay, let's welcome the expert in the field. Mr. Tiliana Fonseca, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mazhar. It's a very nice introduction. Thank you so much. So to start, I would like to share some thoughts with you. I prepared, a couple of slides that I would like to walk you through as an introduction, and then we can get into the questions. So I'll share my screen. Right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So Dr. Prince reached out to me and invited me to discuss and talk to you about the difference between entrepreneurship and business. So I thought maybe I would give you a very brief introduction about what is entrepreneurship and what it takes to run a successful business, and also the difference between those two. So of course, we will cover more from the questions, but there are a few things that I would really like to share with you guys today. So the big question is, even when I was young, the big question was, what is entrepreneurship? And I didn't know what exactly it was. If you search Google, there are so many answers you can find. Different people have different opinions and different definitions. But with my experience, about 5 years of running a business, being a co-founder, being an entrepreneur, there are a few things that I really felt as an entrepreneur. So the first thing and the most important thing is mindset, how you really look at things. When it comes to business, it's totally different. But in entrepreneurship, or if you're running a startup, the mindset is quite unique. So here we don't really focus on making money. Instead of that, entrepreneurs are really focusing on creating value in the society, making a positive impact on the society. That's the mindset entrepreneurs have. And secondly, if you again take business and entrepreneurship, it's very easy to see entrepreneurs are always innovate new things. I mean, sometimes people misunderstand the two terms, innovation and novelty. Novelty is, being able to produce new things doesn't necessarily mean it's an innovation. It's a brand new thing. For example, if you take mobile phone manufacturers, they introduce so many new features. Those are not really innovations, right? But when Apple introduced iPhone for the first time, that was a big innovation. Nobody had really ever done that. So that's the kind of difference that you have. Entrepreneurs are always try to innovate new things. And the third one is having a vision. Now, for me, vision was highly used. I mean, everybody used the word vision, but what it really means, very little clarity we have. If you Google, if you talk to people, they always discuss about, vision. For me, having a great vision, again, a quality of an entrepreneur. So what do we mean by vision? So having a vision is not just one thing. It's a combination of different things. For example, having clear values. What are the things that you value as an individual? And what are the things that you would value as an organization? What are the values that you hold as an individual? So that's the first thing of vision. Second thing is having a BHAG. I call it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. A goal that is big enough that scare yourself and also the external people, right? They will say, hey, you're crazy. But that's the difference the entrepreneurs have. They have these big goals which scare themselves and also the external people. And also they go into a lot of details into what are the things that they will have created, what are the things that they will have achieved, and also to what kind of value they will create when they achieve that goal, that when they achieve that BHAG. So that's the combination of three things. And that's the kind of definition for me for the word vision. It's not just a word. It's not just a statement that you write on a piece of paper or put it on your website. So it's more than that. So these are the key three things that I learned as an entrepreneur during the last 5 to 6 years. And then what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I learned these things the hard way, actually. The very first thing is the price you have to pay. Of course, it will when you become really successful and when you have made a positive impact on the society. But when you start, there's a huge price that you have to pay as an entrepreneur. You will not have early sleeps. You will always go to bed late, and you will always have to wake up early. So you will not have a proper social life because that's the commitment that it asks for. You will not have time for your family and friends sometimes. You will not be able to go out, on Fridays. And you will not have a lot of money to spend as well, because entrepreneurs, they don't get paid very well until they become successful. When they become successful, of course, the rewards are huge, but until you get there, it's a huge price that you have to pay. So that mindset needs to be there. If you are willing to pay the price it takes, then you can actually become a good entrepreneur. And then the risk. So when I first started my business in 2015, I was making maybe $500,000 a month. But when I started my business, I was getting only 100,000 salary. So that's the kind of risk. If things go wrong, you have lost your job, you have lost your income. and you end up with nothing. So that's the kind of risk people take. That's the kind of risk entrepreneurs take. And if you are really willing to take that risk, then you can become a good entrepreneur. Third thing is the most important thing, I would say, actually learning the lessons from the mistakes you do. The people who are not really willing to learn from the mistakes they do, and even from the success, you won't be able to become a good entrepreneur. So learning is a key thing. And then moving on to business. So the key three differences again. So I discussed about three things about entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are very emotional. They take decisions from the guts. They don't always, take decisions based on logics. That's why they take huge risk. But when it comes to business leaders, they always try to make sure the decisions they take are logical. They check the facts and figures. They check the trends in the market. They analyze all the data, and then based on that only they would make decisions. Because if they make a bad decisions, they're gonna either lose their job or there's a massive impact on the financial, and that's something businesses can't afford. Entrepreneurs as individuals, of course, they are willing to take that risk, but business, they are not. And the expertise. So to become an entrepreneur, you don't have to be expert in anything. For example, if you want to build an app, you don't have to become expert in mobile app development. But there are some other things that you need to have, the skills and how you work with people, which I will get back later. Expertise is a key thing. All the businesses, even if you go for an interview, they always ask for the expertise. Okay, how good are you at doing what you do? And third thing is profits. Month on month, year on year, they always look for the profits, because if you don't make profits, it's not a business. Entrepreneurs, on the other hand, they are not really going after profits. Of course, profits will definitely be one of the many results of a successful startup, but the profits is not the key focus. Profits is always not the goal. But when it comes to business, profits is more always, all the time, it's on the top. So those are the few things that I wanted to share with you guys. We can go for the questions.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for the detailed part of what is a business and what is entrepreneurship. Actually, success is not something we can achieve on daily basis with what we are having on mind. It's something like daily routine we have to follow. It's the discipline which takes us to the success of what our aims are. So that on that behalf, we will move to the Q&A session, and the participants can send their questions. So moderators for the and Mr. Udayanga and Miss Sangeeta. So you can send your questions through the chat to us. It can be in Sinhala or English. So we would be able to ask that question. Okay, so without further delay, let's move to the questions. We have prepared some questions from your registrations and the questions you have posted, and we'll carry on with that.
Sure.
So first, I'll give it over to Mr. Udayanga. Mr. Udayanga, it's over to you.
Thank you, Masa. Suba Sandhyak Kevasa, Suba Sandhyak Keva සියලු දෙනාටම ව්‍යාපාරික ශේෂ්ත්‍රයට පිවිසෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන පීස් එකට වටිනා මාතෘකාවක් අද අපි කතා කරනවා. ආරම්භම මගේ ප්‍රශ්නයත් එක්කම මගේ ප්‍රශ්නය තමයි සෑම ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක්ම පිටුපස ව්‍යවසායකය කියන සංකල්පය කීයද? එතනින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා නිසි අධ්‍යාපනයකින් තොරව රැකියාවක් කිරීමට වඩා ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් හෝ ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වීම ඔබ දකින්නේ කොහොමද? ඔබගේ නිර්දේශය මොකක්ද? ඒ පිළිබඳව.
හරි. එතකොට ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ කොටස් කීපයක් තියෙනවානේ. පළවෙනි එක ගමු, සෑම ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක්ම ව්‍යවසායකයෙක්ද කියන එක. මගේ පෞද්ගලික අදහස තමයි නැහැ. හැම ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක්ම ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද එතන තියෙනවා ලොකු වෙනසක්. ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් වීම සහ ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වීම අතර ලොකු වෙනසක් තියෙනවා. අපි මං හිතන්නේ මම මුලින්ම පටන් ගත්තෙත් ඒකෙන්. ඒ ලොකු වෙනසක් තියෙනවා. මං උදාහරණයක් ගන්නම්කෝ. දැන් අපි ගමු හැමෝම දන්න උදාහරණයක් ගමු. අපි උදාහරණයකට Apple ගමු. iPhones හැමෝම දන්නවා. MacBooks හැමෝම දන්නවා. එතකොට Apple කම්පැනි එකේ අපි ගමු ප්‍රධාන හිටපු සහ දැන් ඉන්න ලීඩර්ෂිප් එක ගමු. අපි හිටියේ කවුද? ස්ටීව් ජොබ්ස්. එයා තමයි පටන් ගත්තේ. ඒතර ස්ටීව් ජොබ්ස් කියන්නේ ව්‍යවසායකයෙක්, entrepreneur කෙනෙක්. එයා තමයි ගන්න දින ලොකුම රිස්ක් එක ගත්තේ බිස්නස් එකක් පටන් අරන්. කවුරුත් දැනන් හිටියේ නෑනේ පර්සනල් කම්පියුටර්ස් දැන් තියෙන තත්ත්වයට ඒ දවස්වල එයි කියලා. එයා තමයි පටන් ගත්තේ. එතකොට හොඳ විෂන් එකක් එක්ක ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක ඩිවෙලොප් කරන්න පටන් ගත්තේ එයා. එයා පස්සේ කාලෙක කම්පැනිෙන් අයිනුත් කරලා දැම්මා. හැබැයි එයා ආපහු ආවා. එතකොට එයා තමයි ව්‍යවසායකයාගේ රෝල් එක ප්ලේ කරේ එතන ස්ටීව් ජොබ්ස්. හැබැයි අපි දැන් ගත්තොත් එහෙම Apple කම්පැනි එකේ දැන් CEO ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඉන්නේ ටිම් කුක්. එයාගේ ගෝල් එක තියෙන්නේ ගොඩක් ඉනෝවේෂන් පැත්තට නෙමෙයි. එයා රිස්ක් ගන්නෙ නැහැ. එයා කරන්නේ දැනට තියෙන බිස්නස් එක හිමීට ඉස්සරහට ඉම්ප්‍රූව් කරන්න කොහොමද කියන එක තමයි එයා බලන්නේ. Apple කම්පැනි එක පටන් ගන්නකොට ගත්ත රිස්ක් ටිම් කුක්ට ගන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ දැන්. ඇයි? ඒ ආයතනේ හොඳ තැනකට ලෝකේ තියෙන නම්බර් 1 තැනට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන ටෙක් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ. එතකොට එයාට ඒ රිස්ක් එක නැහැ. එයාට මාර සේෆ්. ජොබ් එක මාරම සේෆ්. එයාගේ රෙපියුටේෂන් එකක් හැදිලා තියෙනවා මේ ආයතනයේ ප්‍රධානියා විදියට. එතකොට හැම ව්‍යවසායකයෙක්ම ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක්ම ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් ටිම් කුක් කියලා කියන්නේ ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක්. එයා ඇවිල්ලා බිස්නස් එකක් ලීඩ් කරන කෙනෙක්. හැබැයි ඇත්තම ව්‍යවසායකයා නැත්නම් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රනර් ඇවිල්ලා ස්ටීව් ජොබ්ස්. ඒතර දෙවෙනි එක තමයි ආපු ප්‍රශ්නේ තිබිච්ච දෙවෙනි කොටස. නිසි අධ්‍යාපනයකින් තොරව ව්‍යාපාරයක් හරි නැත්නම් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් හරි වීම සුදුසුද කියන එක. දැන් අපි අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක ගැන අපි මුලින්ම කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න ඕනේ. ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් වෙන්න ඕනේ නම් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ ව්‍යාපාරික ලෝකයට යන්න ඕන නම් අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක වැදගත්. ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වෙන්න ඕන නම් ඒත් අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක වැදගත්. අධ්‍යාපනය නැතුව කිසිම විදිහකින් අපිට සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්න බෑ. හැබැයි මොකද්ද මේ අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එකේ වෙනසක් තියෙන්නේ? දැන් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වෙන්න අපේ ලංකාවේ හරි ලෝකේ හරි තියෙන මේ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවානේ. අපි මොන්ටිසෝරි යනවා, ඊට පස්සේ ඉස්කෝලේ යනවා, ඊට පස්සේ A level කරනවා, ඩිප්ලෝමාස් කරනවා, ඊට පස්සේ කැම්පස් ගිහලා ඩිග්‍රී එකක් ගන්නවා, මාස්ටර්ස් ගන්නවා, PhD ඒ පාත් එකේ යනවනම් ඒ පාත් එක ඇවිල්ලා සුදුසුයි ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් වෙන. ව්‍යාපාරික ලෝකයට යන්න ඒ මාවත හොඳයි. හැබැයි අධ්‍යාපනය ඒ ඇවිල්ලා අපි කියන ස්ට්‍රක්චර්ඩ් එඩියුකේෂන් එක නැත්තුව අපිට සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්න බෑ. ඒකෙන් අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න මොකද්ද කියන එක ඇත්තටම වැදගත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉගෙන ගන්න මොකද්ද කියන එක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ අපිට කරන්න ඕන දේ මොකද්ද කියන එක මත. දැන් උදාහරණයකට මාකටිං ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ මාකටර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ඕන නම් අපේ සාමාන්‍ය අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයෙන් ගිහිල්ලා සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට අදාළ ඒ අවශ්‍ය ස්කිල්ස් ටික ගන්න ඒ අධ්‍යාපනය ලබා ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ අධ්‍යාපනය ලබා ගන්නකොට ඒක ස්ට්‍රක්චර්ඩ් වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. තමුන්ම ඉගෙන ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. දැන් මම සති දෙක තුනකට කලින් ඉන්ටර්විව් කරා එක්කෙනෙක්ව software developer කෙනෙක්. එයාට ඇවිල්ලා අර මේ ඩිග්‍රී එකක් නැහැ. කොහේ හරි ගිහිල්ලා මේ ඩිප්ලෝමා එකක් කරපු එක්කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි. එයා තනියම ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවා. හැබැයි යාට හොඳ වැටුපක් එක්ක හොඳ සැලරි එකක් එක්ක ජොබ් එක හම්බුණා. අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක මාර වැදගත්. අධ්‍යාපනය නැතුව කිසිම දෙයක මේ සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්න බෑ. හැබැයි අධ්‍යාපනය කොහොමද ගන්න කියන එක තමයි වැදගත්. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් නැත්නම් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රනර් කෙනෙක් ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රනර් කෙනෙක්ගේ සාර්ථකත්වය ඇත්තටම රඳා පවතින්නේ අධ්‍යාපනය. අහපව් අධ්‍යාපනය කියලා කිව්වහම අපේ ඔළුවට එන පළවෙනි දෙයක් තියෙනවනේ. ඒක නෙමෙයි මේ. අධ්‍යාපනය කියලා කියන්නේ අපි දේවල් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා කියන එක. වෙන කෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා, ටීචර් කෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නැත්තම් අපිට අපේ ජීවිතේ අපිට වෙච්ච දේවල්, අපේ ජීවිත කතාවෙන් අපි ඉගෙනගත්ත දේවල් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි වෙන කවුරු හරි කතා කරන දෙයක් දිහා බලලා ඉගෙන ගන්න දේවල් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. තනියම ඉගෙන ගන්න දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකේ කියවලා, වීඩියෝස් බලලා, පොත් කියවලා ඉගෙන ගන්න දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කොහොම වුණත් අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න ක්‍රමය හුඟක් වෙලාවට ව්‍යවසායකයෙක්ට ආවම මාර වෙනස්. අර ස්ට්‍රක්චර්ඩ් එඩියුකේෂන් එකක් නෙමෙයි තියෙන්නේ. සමහර කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා ඒක ෆෝඩ් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් සල්ලි ගන්න පුළුවන් නම් මොන හරි ස්පෙસિෆික් කෝස් එකක් කරන්න ඕන වෙන අවස්ථා තියෙන පුළුවන්. මොකද ස්කිල් එක ඕනේ. ඒ වගේ වෙලාවට සල්ලි දීලා ඉගෙන ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒක අපේ සාමාන්‍ය විවහාරයේ තියෙන අධ්‍යාපනයට වඩා ගොඩාක් වෙනස්. එතකොට මම අහපු ප්‍රශ්නෙට ආවොත් එහෙම නිසි අධ්‍යාපනයක් නැතුව ව්‍යාපාරික ලෝකයට හරි නැත්නම් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් වෙන්න හරි පුළුවන්ද නැත්නම් ඒක මම නිර්දේශ කරනවද කියලා කියන ප්‍රශ්නෙට ඒක ඇත්තටම නිර්දේශ කරන්න බෑ. මොකද අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක මාර වැදගත්. අපිට සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්න ඕන නම් අපිට සාර්ථක වෙන්න ඕන නම් අධ්‍යාපනය කියන එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඕනේ. හැබැයි අපි මතක තියාගන්න ඕන දේ තමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න විදිය අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. තමුම ඉගෙන ගත්ත වෙන්න පුළුවන්, මෙන්ටර් කෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඉගෙන ගත්ත වෙන්න පුළුවන්, කන්සල්ටන්ට් කෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්න වෙන්න පුළුවන්, යාළුවගෙන්, අම්මගෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, තාත්තගෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉගෙන ගන්න ක්‍රමය අදාළ වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි මොනවාද ඉගෙන ගන්න කියන එක මාර වැදගත්. ඉතින් අධ්‍යාපනයකින් තොරව, ඒ අවශ්‍ය අධ්‍යාපනයකින් තොරව ව්‍යාපාරික ලෝකයට හරි, කම්පැනි එකක වැඩ කරන්න හරි, නැත්නම් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රනර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න හරි මම විශ්වාස කරන්නේ අමාරුටත් වඩා බෑ. මොකද ඒ අවශ්‍ය දේවල් ඒ දැනුම කියන එක ඒ බුද්ධිය කියන එක ඕනේ, අනිවාර්යෙන් ඕනේ. ඉතින් අධ්‍යාපනයක් නැතුව ස්පෙෂලි ව්‍යවසායකෙක් වෙන්න හදන්න එපා. මොකද මේ ෆේල් වෙන්න තියෙන chances වැඩි. දැන් ලෝකේ ගත්තොත් එහෙම 10%යි අවුරුදු 10කින් පස්සේ සක්සස්ෆුල් වෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ අවුරුදු 10කට පස්සේ ස්ටාර්ට්අප් එකක් පටන් ගත්තට පස්සේ ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රනර් කෙනෙක් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් මොකක් හරි බිස්නස් එකක් පටන් ගත්තට පස්සේ අවුරුදු 10ක් යනකොට 10%යි ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ. පළවෙනි අවුරුද්ද ඇතුළත 30%ක වගේ ප්‍රමාණයක්ම වැහෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ තව 127ක් 35ක් අතර ප්‍රමාණයක් ඊළඟ අවුරුද්ද ඇතුළත වැහෙනවා. අවුරුදු 5 යනකොට 75ක ප්‍රමාණයක් පටන් ගත්ත බිස්නස් ස්ටාර්ට්අප්ස් වැහෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒකට ගොඩාක් හේතු තියෙනවා. ඒ හේතු වලින් ප්‍රධානම එකක් තමයි නිසි අධ්‍යාපනය නැතිකම. ඉතින් හැමදෙස්සෙම ඉගෙන ගන්න, අලුත් දේවල් ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕනේ. මොකද ලෝකේ මාර විදිහට වෙනස් වෙනවා. ඒකත් එක්ක බිස්නස් ඔපචුනිටිස් වෙනස් වෙනවා. අලුත් බිස්නස් අයිඩියාස් වෙනවා. ඒකත් එක්ක ඉගෙන ගන්න නැතුව සාර්ථක වෙන්න හරිම මේ අමාරුයි. අමාරු කියන්නේ ඉගෙන ගන්න නැතුව සාර්ථක වෙන්න බෑ.
ඒ පිළිතුර ඇතුලේ ගොඩක් දේවල් තිබුණා. ඒක ලොකු එක්ස්ප්ලනේෂන් එකක්. ඒකත් එක්ක මගේ අහපු ප්‍රශ්නය හොඳටම එක්ස්ප්ලේන් වුණා. So thank you for your explanation, sir, and over to you, Sangeeta.
Hi Sangeeta.
Hello, sir. Sir, you said that it is very true that education is important, but it may not be structured education. Thank you for the explanation, sir. It was really useful to us. So, sir, I would like to ask about, as I know, many of us have the idea to own a business or to be an entrepreneur. We have lots of idea in our mind, but starting a business may not very easy. Sir, please share us about what are the practical steps to become an entrepreneur or start a business?
Right. Okay. So to become an entrepreneur or start a business, what are the practical steps we can take? So I usually divide this into two parts. First one is the soft part, like soft skills. And the other one is the technical part. So the steps that we need to take in terms of soft skills and related matters, and the other part is the technical matters. So I'll start with the soft part. The first thing is, as I said at the very beginning, the commitment. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you really need to know the price you have to pay. I explained that earlier as well. It's a big commitment, because when you start something, you start to make an impact on so many other people. It can be the staff in your company if you have a smaller team, and your customers, and everyone, all the stakeholders in between. So to make sure you provide that value you initially intended, it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time, especially when you're starting up, because the money is very little. you will have. You will not have a lot of money. So you have to compensate that from time, because you won't be able to have a lot of people to do different jobs. You will have to pay multiple roles. For example, when I started Simplex, it's a last mile delivery company for e-commerce businesses. We couldn't afford to pay 2 drivers when we started. We could have only 1 driver. So I had to do deliveries. This was in 2015. So we got 1 demo butter lorry for rent, and I was driving the whole day. So it's a big commitment, because when you sell, when you get customers, you promise something. So you have to keep that promise. To keep that promise, you have to go whatever the number of extra miles it takes. You have to do whatever it takes to keep that promise. So you need to accept that, you need to admit that, then only you will be able to keep going. If you don't know the price to pay, and if you do not accept that, it's really hard to move forward. So that's the first thing, right? And the second thing is, we always need to start small, because we still don't know whether our business will work or not. It's a new thing. So we always have to start small. So when we started, we had only 1 delivery hub. It was not even in Colombo. We started our first delivery hub in Trincomalee, and just 1 hub, 5 packages a day, 5 deliveries a day. That's how we started. And with time, you need to experiment little by little whether your business idea really works. Don't go big, suddenly, because that's going to be a massive risk. The success actually depends on how you validate your business idea. So what we did was, after a couple of months, our number of packages, it was 5 packages a day or 5 deliveries a day, went up to 25. So we realized that we know how to do it in 1 location. So we thought, okay, we know how to run a small delivery operation in 1 location, then we can replicate that in another location. So we started in another area, and it was successful as well. So we again increased the number of packages to 25, 13. So we have now 50 to 60 packages daily. So we got the pattern. So we now know whatever the model we started is working. Then we went ahead and kept increasing the number of hubs, and ultimately we went up to 40 hubs across island. So every district at 1 hub, and we were doing about 200, 300 packages in each hub, altogether about 10,000 deliveries a day. So there's a very nice concept in the industry on this, called fire bullets first and then cannonballs. So what it takes is, now a bullet is very small, right? A cannonball is a big ball that you use to destroy or have a bigger impact. So you have to fire bullets first, because bullets are very small, very cheap to build, and the damage it can make is smaller as well. It can, or rather, I would say the impact it can make is smaller as well. Whether it be good or bad, it's small compared to a cannonball. So when you keep firing bullets, and because you have a target to hit, you keep firing bullets. When you know you are hitting the target, you still keep firing to make sure it was not just a random one time. So when you keep hitting the target with bullets, then okay, now we know exactly how to fire a bullet. It's proven, it's working. Then we go big. Then we fire the big cannon and make a huge impact. That's exactly what we did. We were going very small, 1 hub at a time, every 3 to 4 months. And then when we realized it's working, we invested a lot of money and expanded to 25 hubs in 3 months. So after about 1.5 years, we still had 5 hubs, and within the next 3 months, we expanded to 25 hubs. So because we knew it's working, right? So that's a second step. And then again, we need to learn from our mistakes and also from our success. So it's called empirical validation. You learn from your mistakes not to do the same thing again. You learn from what works so you can keep repeating it. So it's another very nice approach called cookie cutter approach. No, you know cookie cutters, right? It cuts cookies in the same shape every time. So if you cut a cookie today, and if you cut a cookie from the same cookie cutter tomorrow, it's going to be the same. And you keep cut. And another step is actually to learn to collaborate with others. Most of the time we feel unsafe whenever we want to make a partnership. We think they will steal our ideas. They think they will, go behind our backs. But it's not really true. For example, when we first started, we were also a delivery company, and Pronto, I think all of you might know, Pronto is another courier company in Sri Lanka. They were a direct competitor. Instead of competing with them, we found a unique way to collaborate with them. Now, they had their massive island-wide network, and every day there were lorries going from Colombo to all these hubs. And we also had across the island, but we didn't have enough volume to have our own lorries, or to, even to rent lorries to send these packages. So what we did was, we talked to them and asked them, hey, look, Pronto, can you transport our packages as well to the hubs? Initially they said no, but then we convinced them. That's another thing that we need to learn: negotiation skills and how to convince people. We need to sell like crazy. If you want to become a entrepreneur, you need to sell like crazy. That's one of the biggest, again, skills, selling. And so we negotiate them to take our packages in their lorries, and it became a massive success. We saved a lot of money, and they saved a lot of money. So we need to collaborate. Even with the competitors, if you find unique collaborations, that's one of the great positions to be. And then as individual, as entrepreneurs, we always need to look for people who are smarter than us. In business world, when business, most of the business leaders, when they see a smarter person than them, they get offended. They worry that they will lose their job. It can be true, it can be true to some extent. But if you are an entrepreneur, you always need to find people who are smarter than you, because that's the only way that you will keep the focus on the vision and lead the rest of the people that will follow, and inspire people. So you always need to find people who are smarter than you. And then again, part of the same thing, you need to follow the business. You need to learn from the best. For example, I always used to follow Amazon, because they have a massive fulfillment operation. They deliver globally. They have their own aircrafts going across, countries, and their operation is so good. So we need to learn from them. We need to benchmark the biggest competitors or biggest players in the industry, and we need to learn from them, because they have done it for so many years. They have gone through all the mistakes. They have rectified those mistakes. So why should we do the same mistakes again? So that's why we need to follow the business leaders in the industry, and we need to learn from them. Especially these big companies, they freely put all these things out on the web. They have their blogs, they have their websites. A lot of people write about them. The content is available, so we always need to follow. So many other people also write about them. If you take Amazon fulfillment, you can find millions of people who write about how good they are and how they really do it. So we need to learn from it. So that's some of the things from the soft part. And then it comes to technical matters. After some time, after you have validated that your business will work, you need to register your business, because that builds credibility to a certain extent, and it helps in the long run as well. For example, venture capital investor, if you take a venture capital investor, they won't invest in a individual as a business. Let's say I don't have a business registered. They won't come and say, hey, look, Tilina, here's 20 million rupees. I'll put it into your personal account. That's not going to happen. And then if you take clients, you go sell, and when they are going to pay, they ask how am I going to, can you put it into my personal bank account? Then they start to worry, because if I run away, there's no way that they can take any action. I can say anything. Hey, you took a loan from me. That's the money you paid me. But when you have a business registered, it's legalized in the country, in whatever the country you are in, and it bounds you legally. So there are something called director's liabilities. And if you are a director of a company, you can't get away from those liabilities. For example, if you have to pay, you have to pay. Otherwise, they can go to courts, file a case, and you are in trouble. So when you register a business, it builds credibility. So not at the beginning. You don't have to do it at the beginning. But if you can afford to do that, pay 30,000, 40,000 rupees it takes right now. If you can register at the beginning, that's great as well. And then you need to build followers. When I say followers, it's not just random people on social media or any other internet platform, but the people who can become potential customers. Of course, you can use social media, you can use email marketing, you can use any channel, but you need to build that follower base, which will ultimately help you build a good brand. And then initially, if you can provide a very good value out of the services or the products you provide at a discounted rate, or even sometimes for free, that can be a huge benefit as well. Now, for example, when we started, we had some onboarding discounts. For some people, we gave, hey, look, if you join us today, the first 100 deliveries, we will do at 50% discount. And we were doing very small volumes. Some people came in, gave us 5 orders a day, 5 deliveries a day, and we gave them 50% discount. It was not making a huge impact on our cash flow, but it was a huge impact on their cash because they are just starting. And ultimately, they grew. Some of these clients grew to 100 packages a day, and they were paying the full price after they grew. So that kind of value, providing that kind of value for free or at a discounted rate, can actually make a difference, because we are the economy we are in. It's always money and the value. Money doesn't have a value, but the service you provide has a value, and you measure that from money. So those 3 things I would say from a technical perspective, things that you can start doing to become a good entrepreneur or to start a good business. I hope that answered your question, Sangeeta.
It really answered well the question she brought in. Actually, you took the example of your startup where you started and how you step by step it went on and became successful. And you are referring so much many codes like first you should fire bullets, then on you should move to firing cannons. So those were like really very exemplary, where people can easily grasp the and got like part everything. And you mentioned especially the impact of negotiation skills, the selling patterns of these entrepreneurs help the startup to go in a best way to build as a huge company. What else? What are the other skills do we need to learn to become an entrepreneur?
Right. So the very first skill that any entrepreneur needs to build is how to be visionary and not settling for less. So that's how successful entrepreneurs are made. So when I say vision, again, it's a combination of couple of things. First thing, you need to know your values, and you need to know your why. Why are you starting a business at the first place? And remember, money shouldn't be one of these goals. The key goals, money shouldn't be one of these key goals. Money will, of course, come as a result but it shouldn't be the goal. So you need to know why you are starting. When our vision, actually part of the vision, why we started was to actually empower e-commerce ecosystem in the Sri Lanka and to make customers happy. And that was our BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, to make customers happy. In any industry, it's very hard to make everybody happy. At some point, somebody gonna get angry. At some point, somebody gonna get frustrated. So that was like a goal which looked like we cannot achieve. But that's the how, by providing delivery services. We wanted to deliver to any corner of the country. I have personally gone to Mullaitivu and done deliveries just to see how it feels like. Some people have to spend at least 300-400 rupees if they take a three-wheeler just to come out of their city, or just to come out from their hometown home to the city. But from Colombo, we were delivering at 350 rupees per deliver, and it was a great value, and people were so happy. Of course, there were customers, they were very angry because we couldn't deliver on time. Hiccups happen all the time. In business, there are mistakes happen all the time. Going back to the topic again, you need to be visionary. You need to have that huge goal. And you need to know the values you will follow, and you need to know the details of everything, how it will look when you achieve it. So you need, the skill I'm talking about is actually being visionary. So people think everybody cannot be visionaries, but I believe everybody can be visionary by following this very I would say a very practical framework. You start with why, you define your why. Actually you not define, I would say you discover your why, and then you discover what are the values that you hold. For example, integrity, being honest, and then you have that big goal. You define a big goal that looks crazy for rest of the people and also scares yourself. And then you need to have tiny details, how it will look like when you achieve that goal. So when I think about those things, I get really motivated. Every day I can get up and get out of the bed and go even drive a lorry. I drove a lorry for a couple of months. It's because I had that vision. It's just not one statement. It's a combination of these things. Why you are doing it, and what are the things that you will have achieved. What are the things that you will have created. What are the value, or what is the impact that you will have made when you achieve that goal. So when you have everything, it's like a picture. So wherever you go, you have that in your head, like a poster. So you need to learn how to establish that image. You need to learn how to paint that image. When you paint that image, it's really easy to keep moving as an entrepreneur. So that's the first skill I would say. Learn to be visionary. Don't just settle for less. And it's key part of being a good leader. Become a successful entrepreneur, you can't do it alone. If you take success and failure, you can always fail alone. You don't need anybody to fail. You can fail alone. But if you want to become successful, and if you want to build a great company as an entrepreneur, you always need a team. Without a team, you can't become a successful entrepreneur. Without a team, you cannot build a great business. So how do you get these people to work for you? Is by inspiring them. You inspire them so that they work for themselves. They don't just work for you. People don't come and work for Tilina, but they work for themselves because they believe in that vision. So you need to inspire. Important skill, I would say, learn how to inspire people. And then again, related to the same topic, you need to learn how to build teams. You need to learn how to collaborate with people. So there are two parts, again, external and internal. I discussed about how to build unique collaborations with externals. But when it comes to internal teams, you need to learn how to build great teams. I call them A teams. So the people who are in A teams are self-managed. You don't have to go after them and poke every time to get something. Then they're self-managed. When they agree on a particular goal, they do it for themselves and they do it by themselves. Nobody has to go and keep asking, hey, did you do that? So that's the kind of teams you need to build. So you need to learn how to build great teams. I repeat again, because you can always fail alone, but you can't be successful alone. If you want to be successful, you always need to have a team, and that team needs to be a team, and you need to learn how to build teams. It's always about how to deal with people and inspire them. And then one of the most important skills again is financial IQ. I learned this the hard way, actually. I have made decisions because I didn't have proper financial IQ, and I lost a lot of money as an entrepreneur. I didn't personally lose money, but my business lost money. But if I didn't lose that money, I could have invested that money in something better, which can ultimately grow the business more. So financial IQ has a couple of areas. Accounting, how to do accounting. You need to know basic accounting. If you don't know basic accounting, it's really hard to make good decisions. Of course, you need to have a very good accountant, very good, a finance manager. I'm talking about long term, right? But when you start, you need to know the numbers. You need to know how to read these numbers. Financial statements, you need to know how to read them. Cash flows, a profit and loss statement, balance sheet. It doesn't take a lot of time to learn these things. If you go to YouTube, if you follow Udemy or Skillshare, those platforms have more than enough resources to learn. So you need to have that financial IQ, not to a very extended level, but you need to know the basic. You should be able to understand what the numbers say. And then financial IQ again consists of a couple of things. So how to learn or how to read the numbers is one part. Accounting is just one part. Second thing is supply and demand. How to provide or how to supply and how to understand the demand. So that's another skill you need to learn. Marketing and sales. How to market yourself, how to sell. So these are vast topics. We can actually have 1.5 hour session or one whole day workshop just to discuss marketing, just to discuss sales. But at a high level, marketing and sales, you need to learn. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to know these. Some people say you don't have to become a king, but you need to know a jack of everything sometimes. Entrepreneur is something like that. You know the basics of all of these areas. So marketing and sales is key, because sales is the only way that you can be successful. If you don't generate a revenue, if you don't generate profits in the long run, no matter how visionary you are, you won't be able to sustain the business. And then how to invest. So when we hear the word invest, most of the people are afraid. That's how not only in Sri Lanka, but that's how the standard education system in most of the time built. We don't learn how to invest, especially money, because if you are an entrepreneur, you are building a business, and for a business to be successful, you need to know how money works. To know how money works, you need to know how to invest. Investing doesn't, I know when you hear the word investing, you have a perception, but I'm not really discussing about that. I'm talking about how you're going to spend your money in such ways that it will actually bring something back. It can be value or it can be money. If you have 100 rupees, on what are you going to spend that money so that in couple of months, couple of years, you can save 100 rupees. Right? So you need to learn how to invest, not in capital markets, not in stocks, not in some fancy, hedge fund, not in fixed deposits. Those can be very valuable, but as a business, how you are going to invest your business money in different aspects. It can be people, it can be technology, it can be process improvements, it can be so many other things. But depending on the strategy that you will follow, you need to know how to invest. And the next thing is ability to learn new things. If you don't know how to learn new things, none of the things I just mentioned will work if you don't know how to learn. And the next thing is you need to know how to unlearn things as well, because for so many years we learn things in certain ways and they are rooted in our heads and in our hearts. And if that's not the best thing to move forward with, we need to be able to put them down. We need to learn how to unlearn as well. So learning comes with two paths: learning new things and unlearning what really doesn't add value to you achieving your goals. So a good entrepreneur, learning new things, that's a must skill, and unlearning things that doesn't add value, again, it's a must skill. And then taking risk. I call this also a skill because most of the people don't know how to take risk, and majority of the people, vast majority of the people, they don't take risk. And entrepreneurs, they always take risk. If you want to become an entrepreneur, if you're afraid of taking risk, that's the first step I would recommend. Learn how to take risk. So the first step of learning how to take risk is actually going out of your comfort zone and doing something new or doing something for the first time as soon as you can. I mean, imagine the things that you wanted to do. It can be small things, but you were afraid of doing that for so many reasons. Just go ahead and do it. You fail. If you fail, you learn something. You will learn how not to do something. And if you become successful, you know how to do something now. So take small steps, take risk, learn how to take risk, because when you become an entrepreneur, you need to know how to take risk. You can't just take risk randomly. It has to be calculated risk you're gonna take. So do something new every day. So those are the set of skills I would highly recommend for you to learn if you envision to become an entrepreneur.
Thank you, sir. So great that like the risk do matter. Like when something is put forward, we should be able to take the risk, because when it comes to entrepreneurship, everyone is only thinking about the risk we have to take. Maybe after the graduation, they would have to 4 years of their life for this entrepreneurship to make business successful. But everyone is thinking the behind situation. What if it fails? What would be my situation? How would I move forward? So we should, as Sir said, we should learn to take risks. We should learn to make how if things fail, how we keep moving forward. So those do matters, and he really showed us like what are the skills really helpful for us to go forward. So I have another question for you. Who becomes okay? Yeah. So who becomes more successful faster, sir? Is it an entrepreneur or a businessman? Like how things work? Like for example, an established business, and someone goes on and takes on it and try to scale it up. So that is something he makes the business more successful. But starting off from the ground is something different. So who is more successful? Is it an entrepreneur or a businessman? Like in this long term?
Right. So who would become more successful? It can be an entrepreneur, it can be someone working for a company. You can become successful. But how fast you can become successful is something worth discussing. If you become, it comes faster than a businessman. For example, if you take, again, I would go for the same example, Apple, right? Now, Tim Cook is CEO. He's probably around 50, so 55 years of age. Now he has come to a great level. But if you take Steve Jobs, he was the entrepreneur of, I don't know, the globally the best entrepreneur when he was in 30s. That's only if you become successful, right? So to answer faster, if you become successful. Otherwise, if you go on the usual, corporate ladder, it's going to take a lot of time because it's going to be promotions after promotion and then, after another promotion. That's how you can become successful. It will take, 15 to 20 years sometimes. But a good business can be successful in a couple of years. For example, I'm not sure if you know a software product called Canva. So recently they raised about I think more than $100 million, and their valuation is in
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Yes, and their valuation is in dollar billions, a couple of $1 billion, and it's only few years since they have started. It's less than 10 years, right? So the founders actually are reaping the benefits now in about 10 years, and the founders are very young. 25 to 30 years old. So if you have a great idea, if you validate and you go for it, and if you make it successful, definitely entrepreneurs can be successful faster. Again, the catch here is the risk you have to take at the beginning, right? Not everybody is willing to take that risk. People who take risk, and if they become successful, the reward is massive compared to a usual, corporate ladder. So again, sometimes there are extraordinary people who work in business who get promoted and who you come to the top fast as well. But those are very extraordinary people who again take the risk within the businesses, within the company itself. So whoever take risk tend to be successful faster. So to directly answer your question, entrepreneurs have the highest possibility of becoming successful faster, and they also have the highest possibility of failing faster as well. So we need to know both. Did I hope I answered your question? Any other part to the same question I missed?
No, sir. I think you really explained it how with the example of Canva. Like even though I'm familiar with it, so it was like useful for me. Like because I didn't know the name for last couple of years, but it was like something new to me, like in the last couple of years. So that's really good. Over to you, Sangeeta.
I think she is on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption. So you gave many examples to us, such as Canva. Also, I am also using that. It was such a great informative, and you were giving some more example to us. It really helps us too. And I have a question about how to build a startup that will be really successful.
Right. So that's the goal, right? Whenever we start something new, all the entrepreneurs, that's the goal, to be successful. So we already discussed a couple of things that will actually define whether we will be successful or not. For example, starting with your why and having a vision. That's something that we already discussed. And building great teams is also another part of the whole equation. And then we also discussed about building unique collaborations, right? So those three things are important. On top of that, there's something really important. So when you come up with a new business idea, most of the time it's not 100% new, you know, unless you innovate something totally new. Most of the time it's already there in the market, but we are providing the same value, same service, same product in a different way. And no matter what kind of a product or what kind of a service we will put out to the market, there will always be competitors, right? So if you want to make your business successful and stand out from the rest of the competitors and in the market, your product or the service has to be way better than the competition. It has to be better by a significant margin compared to the rest. So this is something Elon Musk always talk about. So if you want to be successful, you build a product which is greater by a significant margin compared to the rest. And look at Teslas, right? I mean, it's really hard not to like a Tesla, but you know, there are so many other cars that you can hate, you know, it can be from Toyota, it can be from Nissan, it can be from any other brand. There are enough cars that we can hate. I mean, we don't like it. The design is not good. I mean, there can be so many other reasons, but I have not seen anyone who would say a Tesla is, you know, not good. So it's significant by a greater margin. That's one of the key things, you know. You can't be just, it doesn't work. A successful business is always better than a significant margin. Again, I can take another example. Take iPhones and Samsung phones. Of course, sometimes the price range can be the same, but iPhones are way better compared to any other brand. I mean, that's why they have become the, you know, #1 technology company in the world. It's not about you know, how it look and feel, but it's about how Apple sells as well, which comes to the next point actually. You need to sell with empathy. So what do you mean by empathy? So being able to understand how others feel about things. Put it in another way, you need to be able to get into their shoes and look at things. So if you want to become or if you want to build a great company, you need to sell with empathy. So it's not just, you know, we are just pushing a product or a service down somebody's throat. We inspire them to buy. Again, I follow Apple for this matter as well. They don't just come and say, hey, look, we have a great phone. It has so many features. Why don't you buy one? I'm not sure if you guys follow Simon Sinek. He's one of the greatest guys that I follow. So he explains this very well. You know, how Apple sells with empathy. They start with why they are building great products. They want to build the greatest product in the market. What the product is, they don't really define, but they always say, we believe in building great products, which is easy to use, it's very simple, intuitive, and we have ultimately built a phone. Would you like to buy? Since this way better than myself, I can maybe send you a couple of links to watch that video. So great companies sell with empathy. So I watched this video few years back during the early stages, and I actually implemented that when I do sales. So since we were doing last mile logistic for e-commerce businesses, initially I was selling, because and entrepreneurs, you have to sell. If you are an entrepreneur, you need to know how to sell your product or service. So I was telling people, we believe in making customers happy, and we believe in empowering Sri Lankan e-commerce ecosystem. That's why we have built this last mile logistic network. So we empower you so you can become successful. would you like to be a part of our logistic platform, and would you like to try us? So during the first couple of years, I could always get the sale. I mean, I remember until I stopped doing sales because I had to move on to technology and processes and rest of the other things. I always managed to get the sale because I followed that. You sell with empathy and you sell with purpose. So if you want to build a great product, you need to start selling with empathy and purpose. And since building great teams is also part of that, you need to inspire your team to sell with empathy and purpose as well, right? So that's about scalability. There are so much one single person can do. So you build a team, you inspire them to sell with empathy and purpose. It's about scalability. And then coming into scalability, if you want to again build a startup that will be successful, you need to be scalable. You have 1 employee today, you have 2 employees tomorrow. In a couple of years, if you have 100 employees, how are you going to really scale? How are you going to grow? Will your technology support 100 people? Will your processor support 100 people? Will your workflow support 100 people? Can your team handle 1,000 customers? Can your officers handle, or can your customer happiness team can handle 1,000 calls a day? When you start, it will be 1 or 2 calls and you can answer them. But when you keep growing, if you are doing good, you're going to keep growing, right? Definitely you're going to grow if you're doing a good job. And when you grow, if you can't handle the growth, then you fail. Not because you don't have a great product, but you don't know how to scale. So a successful business, building a successful business means you have to build it to last. The business need to last for rest of your life. And if that to happen, everything has to be scalable. The teams needs to be scalable. The technology needs to be scalable. The processes needs to be scalable. Workflows needs to be scalable. People needs to be scalable as well. You start with one small person, doing a small job. And if that person cannot scale that person's skills, knowledge, and attitude, when the business grow, they are going to get stagnated. And if the people are going to get stagnated, business can't move forward. And it applies to us as well as entrepreneurs. We need to be scalable as well as individuals. We need to learn how to widen our knowledge and be open-minded so we can scale ourselves. So it's all about scalability. Why I call the scalability is important. Again, depending on how you define success. For some people, making 2 million revenue a month can be a successful business. A business which makes 2 million rupees a month can be a successful business. But if you plan to make 100 million a month, then definitely it's going to take a lot more than what it takes to build a 2 million rupee company. So if you envision for 100 million rupee company, then you need to grow. And if you need to grow, the only way is having scalable modules, having scalable processes, systems, technology. Everything needs to be scalable. So that's something really important. We always need to think about future. We do something today, but we need to remember what it will look like in 5 years. What we do today, what we build today, can that be scaled when down the 5 years line when things are bigger, right? So scalability is very important. So again, to summarize, we discussed about 3 things on this question. First thing, building a great product, and it has to be better by a significant margin, not just a little bit better than the competition, right? And then we need to sell with empathy and purpose. That's the second most important thing. And then we need to be able to build scalable processes, teams, technology, all of that, and things we discussed already about having a good vision. I mean, discovering your vision and having that established. And then building great teams, and unique collaborations. So these are, a list of things that I would recommend, again, if you want to build a successful business for the long run.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for greatly elaborating us how a startup could be successful, especially in Sri Lanka. And of course, like you came up with an example of Apple, how they sell a great product with empathy. So actually, like the last month was Techtember. So it's even though it's September for the tech, and it's actually Techtember. So we are like we actually we don't care how much the iPhone is, but I used to go for the event just to see how they market the product. It's really great to see that stage performance. So before moving to the next question, I would like to tell the participants to share what are the questions they have in the chat box. So to the moderators, whether it can be in Sinhala or English or Tamil, even we can translate it to the Mr. Tirina Fonseca. So the last one of the question is how to find the capital for a startup. Like actually, when it comes to, we have the idea, maybe we have the qualities or the skills to develop, but when it comes to capital, we don't get the investment from anywhere else. So maybe we have to earn it. It takes years. Maybe during that someone else integrates the business. So immediately we have to start. Then we have a big question, where to find the capital? Because it's really, I know, really hard to find people to believe in our business. So how do you think we should focus on that, finding the capital?
Right. So as I said before, so when we start, we need to start small, right? And unless you have a lot of money saved by the time you start, or if your parents or your friends, family is willing to put money in when you start, that's like the first step, right? Friends and family and your savings. So when I started, I didn't have a penny in my account for whatever the reason, because I was just I started the job after a couple of years, having the time of my life, right? And I didn't have a lot of money, so I had to do my job for almost a year while running my business, and my boss knew it. I told him, hey boss, I have this idea to build this company, but I can't do it. I can't just quit. I will do it part-time, but I will make sure my commitments to my full-time job is met. Is that okay? And he was very happy, and he actually helped me to bring sales as well. So I worked a couple of actually almost about 1 year before I go full-time to support my business. So the first step is through my own savings. Second one is friends and family. As I said, friends and family, I don't recommend them to become co-founders of your business. I mean, I have not seen friends and family become co-founders, because if you don't find the right people, that becomes a critical point later, right? You associate friends and family for who they are, not for what they want to become, right? You love them, you take care of them, they love you, they take care of yourself. It's the relationship is based on who they are right now. But when it comes to business, it's about who they are right now, but what they want to become in the future. So be careful when you go there, but that's the first resort. And then another aspect would be angel investors. If there are so many angel investor networks across the globe. If you take Sri Lanka, there's something called Lankan Angel Network, LAN. If you search on Google, you can find it. They have yearly competitions as well, something called Venture Engine. Probably you guys already know on social media and everything. Those guys are a great resource. So angel investors. on one of the many angel networks, but you can reach out to other people. If you think the people who are doing businesses already can be small scale, if you think people have some extra money to invest, you can reach out to them. So they are for the trick about angel investments is, again, you need to sell, you need to negotiate, because angel investors tend to ask more in return. So you need to be very good at negotiating, the financials. And then when you have venture capital investors, so me and my friend, who we started our business together, since we invested in the business from our own savings, ran the business for about a year, built some traction, and then when we pitched to angel investors, they directly introduced us to venture capital investors. So venture capital investors are investing in big numbers. So over the couple of years, we raised about 200 million rupees. So they invest in that scale. So venture capital investors, and then another thing, a successful way of finding investment is crowdsourcing. So one of my friends from my university actually launched a product called Magic Bit. It's a IoT device that can be programmed, by anybody very easily. So they put it on Kickstarter. Have you guys heard about Kickstarter? It's a globally recognized platform where you pre-sell a product. I'm not sure whether it will work for a service, but probably if you package correctly, you should be able to sell even services. So they pre-sell. They don't have the product built yet. They have the prototype. They pre-sell on Kickstarter. When people buy, they use that money to build the product and then ship. So crowdsourcing is also a great way of getting funded. There are so many crowdsourcing platforms, Kickstarter being the market leader. So first one, start saving money if you want to become an entrepreneur. Reach out to your friends and family. And another thing is actually can be donations as well. There are good people who are willing to donate money for small and medium scale businesses. You can even go for loans as well. So donations, loans, and then crowdsourcing. So there are so many competitions happening because there are so many startup networks. If you go to social media or LinkedIn, you can find those people. So get connected to them, attend their seminars, workshops, programs, be in touch with them, prepare a pitch deck, pitch to them. You're not going to get funded the first time, right? I mean, I had to pitch for I started in March, and we got funding in August. So it was about 6 to 7 months before you can really get funded. I mean, but it was venture capital investors. Angel investors tend to get sooner. So have a pitch deck, start pitching. We never know who will actually invest. So those are the ways that you can find capital. So definitely save and invest properly. The save money, you have to invest properly. That's one of the things I said, financial IQ, how to invest money. Reach out to friends and family, go for donations, bank loans, angel investors, venture capital investors, and crowdsourcing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So actually, it's like a very good recommendation what you suggested actually, like to save up for the initial part of the business and then grow it somewhat, and then move on to pitching your ideas to the banks and venture capitalists, so that you can scale it up to a larger scale. So that's the process what happens, right? So, and I personally have a question to you. So as a person participating this session, So I often get some ideas. As an engineering student, we often get ideas for a startup. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, it's still a developing country. So when the most probably the easiest startup to make is like to see what are the startups going on around the world, and just to bring one of the product which is not here yet, to start here as a small scale for the current island. So I thought of when I think about those, and I once came up with an idea to bring up a ride sharing app. So where I, like, instead of PickMe, where I, even like a person of customer of PickMe or Uber, I find it costly, like living on Sri Lanka. So then I thought of like bringing a ride sharing app, and I researched about it, how it's working, whether there are startups in Sri Lanka, whether there are startups around the world. And I see Google has there was a Google startup as well, and there were startups from other in the US, but they were not going so much well. But in Sri Lanka also, I saw some startups. But it's really kind of like relate with the startups in the world and to the context of Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka behaves in a different way. And in the world globally, there are like one out of 10 startups, only 1% gets one gets success, right? So out of the 100, only 10%.
Yeah.
So how do you see that in Sri Lanka? Like, what are the problems we generally face, and how we can overcome based on Sri Lanka?
Right.
So that is my question.
Right. So to make sure I understood the question right. What you want to know whether you can bring already working product or a service to Sri Lanka and implement it here in Sri Lanka, right? And then how you can compete.
Yes, so that kind of idea which is working around the world,
Yeah.
but we integrate it based to Sri Lanka. So something like, it's not a new idea, not an entrepreneurship idea, but something we use it here.
Right. So the first thing comes to my mind is the product market fit. Another country or in another market doesn't mean it will work here in Sri Lanka. The customer base needs to be ready to buy that product or service. So it's the product market fit. That's number one. And then if you take again, for example, ride sharing app, if we are trying to get into that market, we are too late for the party actually, because PickMe is already there, Uber is already there, the competition is high, and they have deep pockets. For example, PickMe raised close to $4 million in 2 years back from IFC, right? So the competition is also another factor. We can't, I mean, if we are starting a ride sharing app today, competition is very high, and we are going to just burn money just marketing, right? So that's another thing. But if there's no competition, there's a good possibility that we can become successful. Again, product market fit comes into play. Are the buyers, are the customers ready to accept that product or service? If they are not ready to buy or accept, if there's no need, then again, you are going to have to spend a lot of money marketing and introducing that product to the market. So solution, something working in another country, bring it to Sri Lanka, it will be quite successful. But otherwise, if it is not a need, again, it's less likely. I mean, we can make it work, but we have to put a lot of money on marketing. So product market fit is the term I use here. I think if you go online and search about it, you can learn a lot. I mean, I also have a lot of resources, I collected throughout the past 6-7 years. Maybe I can find a way to share all of these things with you as well.
To fill out, I would like to add a small thing, sir. What are the problems you didn't even expect coming to you? Because there are general problems we expect from a startup, but in the base of Sri Lanka, you might expect something different. Maybe you have some legal barriers. So maybe how the customers behave could be totally different. Like, you didn't even expect it. So what kind of barriers you felt like that?
Yeah. So the biggest problem I face is actually in the legal system here in Sri Lanka. So if, let's say, I mean, when we are doing business, it's always about, transactions and relationships. Depending on your customer base and depending on what type of people work in the business, if the legal system is not in place correctly, which cannot be, what you call, if the legal system doesn't support when something goes bad, it's really hard to recover. For example, here in Sri Lanka, the legal system is such that you can't take action on anybody properly because there are so many loopholes. Now, since we were doing last mile logistics and we do a lot of COD orders, cash on deliveries, and people collect money on behalf of us, and they were supposed to, bank it, put it in our bank account. Most of the time it worked correct, but there were a couple of incidents where people ran out with our money. We catch the person, but there's no proper legal structure in place to recover that money. If that person says, I don't have it, that's it. You're not going to be able to do anything. And the second problem, the biggest problem I face is the electronic documentation. Using usernames and password is not accepted properly within the legal system here in Sri Lanka. So, for example, in US, IP address can be considered as like a very unique address, right? If I log in from a computer, I do something, they track the IP address, I can be caught. But here in Sri Lanka, even if we give the IP address, even if they can find the person, how the police or the systems will react is very lethargic. So don't expect the legal system to help you here in Sri Lanka. So to avoid that, that's why I said, putting workflows, technology, people, all of that really matters, because we don't want to get into situations where we want to get the help of the legal system. So that was the biggest barrier actually. There was no way to solve problems legally. So be very careful. Unfortunately, we have to use a lot of documentation. You have to print something, you have to get a signature, then you are safe to some extent because people are afraid. People are scared. Right? You understand what I'm saying? People are afraid of doing something against if they sign it. But if they are using an app, they don't really care. Even Uber Eats, PickMe, they always do it. They come to the location, they just go without even calling, and then we don't get paid. Our credit card get debited, and there's nothing you can do about it. So be careful on that. Have proper documentation, especially in legal governance.
Okay. So, and I have one more idea. This is often a question from the undergraduates, because that's the best time we can build something for a startup, right? So when we are in the learning process, we are almost free. So we build a team, which are friends, and we try to move on to a startup. And is it always in a good way? Like soon after your graduation, you are moving for a startup, as in the Mark Zuckerberg's whole life, right? So that's a big inspiration everyone has. And or is it always good to have some experience on the field, see how the business structure works, how what are the problems they face, what is actually the part we look from outside, and how we go inside and see how it works is totally different, whether it's going to be industry, any industry. So what do you suggest? Should we have that experience first to move on to a startup, or else we can start right away?
I believe the best time to start a startup is now. Because learning new things is a must. It doesn't matter whether you're going to learn from learn by working for a company or just doing it by yourself, right? Trial and error. That's the best way actually, because you guys are still very young, just starting out. So now is the best time to fail. When you are 35, 40 years old, when you have family and commitments, you can't afford to fail. Now, no commitments, right? If you don't have a job, your parents will feed you anyway. The Sri Lankan parents are so good. They feed you no matter what, right? Now is the best time if you want to start something, because failure is something you cannot avoid. I mean, I have not seen any successful entrepreneur who didn't fail. Everybody failed at some point of time. In some way, they learned from it, and then they kept moving and became successful. So now is the best time to start a startup if you want, so that when you fail, the consequences will be very small. So now is the best time. Don't worry about having all that expertise and skill set. The only thing you need is actually the attitude and mindset to learn new things by doing things by self-learning. Because you can always learn skills.
Yes, sir. So it's always the best time is to start now rather than later. I really got it.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Now is not the best time for me to start a new business, but for you guys, absolutely yes. I mean,
Yes,
if you
exactly.
guys follow Jack Ma from Alibaba, I mean, he preaches about this, right? When you are 50 years old, 40 years old, is not the best time to start. The best time to start is now. If you are, young, just like you guys, still young, best time for you.
Thank you for your valuable advice. Like how we can, like everyone here could get started with a startup and be successful, and maybe after a few years they will be here like you and delivering a thoughtful advice to the future generations. So I hope that will be happening. Thank you so much for being here today, sir. And I give it over to Mr. Udayanga for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Masa. So this is the participant. These for the participants. So fill the feedback form, and our next webinar topic is ethical leadership. It's on 26th of October at 6 p.m. So finally, today we had a great session. I think things here discussed which are very informative and attractive. So thank you very much, Mr. Tirina Fonseca and Ms. Sarah. Spend your valuable time with us, and thank you for accepting our invitation as well. So I would like to thanks for Dr. Susit Gunawardana, Director of Career Guidance Unit, University of Ruhuna, and Dr. Prince, Faculty of Engineering, also Ms. Vindhya Velihena, Career Council of the Faculty of Engineering, and also thank you very much for the participants for listening to the webinar, and hope you get more informative ideas. And so thank you very much all, and stay safe.
I would like to thank you guys also for giving us this opportunity. Really enjoy talking to you. I wish you all the best. And if you want to start something new, and if you want help, just reach out to me anytime. Just drop me a mail. You can get it from Dr. Prince, and I will try my best to reply as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.